Hey guys, welcome back to another True Crime Thursday. Today I'm going to be talking about a very old case of disappearance. The lost colony of Roanoke. A lot of people know of this story. I actually did a high school project on this whole case, trying to figure out who did it and what happened. So today I'm going to be going over exactly what happened, the theories, and then you guys can decide for yourselves what you think happened. Alright, let's get into it. In 1578, Queen Elizabeth I granted a charter to Sir Humphrey Gilbert to explore and colonize territories unclaimed by Christian kingdoms. The terms of the charter were vague, though Gilbert understood it gave him rights to all territory in the New World north of Spanish Florida. Following Gilbert's death in 1583, the Queen divided the charter between his brother Adrian Gilbert and his half-brother Walter Raleigh. Despite the broad powers granted to Raleigh, he was forbidden to leave the Queen's side. Instead of personally leading voyages to the Americas, he delegated the missions to his associates and oversaw the operations from London. The first colony Raleigh tried to establish, he planned a large military operation focused on the exploration and evaluation of natural resources. Many agree that Roanoke Island was strategically located for access to the ocean and to avoid detection from the Spanish. By spring, relations between them and the Secatoan clan were strained. Pemispan planned to ambush the key leaders as they slept at the colony, and then signal for a general attack on the rest. Based on this information, the leader of the group, Lane, sent disinformation to the Secatoans to tell them that the British, military had arrived, so it had to push Pemispan's hand. On June 1st, Lane, his top officers, and 25 men visited Dasamanguponke under the pretense of discussing an attempt to free their hostage, Siko. Once they were admitted into the council, Lane gave the signal for his men to attack. Pemispan was shot and fled into the woods, but Lane's men caught up to him and brought back his head, which they impaled outside the fort. You're on their land, eating their food and their shit. They get mad. They're like, let's fight back. This is dumb. And your first thought is, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just kill them. And this is why no one likes you. In June, a hurricane hit the Outer Banks. After the storm, Lane persuaded his men to evacuate the colony. 3 of Lane's colonists were left behind and never heard from again. Probably dead. Drake's fleet, which is a captain that caught up to them, along with Lane's colonists, reached England in July of 1586. Upon arrival, the colonists introduced tobacco, maize, and potatoes to England. After this failed attempt, they're like, you know what we should do? Let's do it again. Despite the desertion of the Lane colony, Raleigh was persuaded to make another attempt. However, Roanoke Island would no longer be safe for English settlers, obviously. So one of his companions suggested Chesapeake Bay as the site for a new colony. In part, he believed the Pacific coast lay just beyond the explored areas of the Virginia Territory. On January 7th, 1587, Raleigh approved a corporate charter to found the city of Raleigh, with John White as governor and 12 assistants. Approximately 115 people agreed to join the colony, including White's pregnant daughter Eleanor and her husband Ananias Dare. The colonists were largely middle-class Londoners, perhaps seeking to become landed gentry. This time, the party included women and children, but no organized military force. The expedition consisted of 3 ships: the flagship Lion, captained by White, with Fernandez as master and pilot, along with flyboat under the command of Edward Spicer, and a full-rigged pinnace commanded by Edward Stafford. The fleet departed on May 8th. White's party located the site of Lane's colony. The fort had been dismantled, while the houses stood vacant and overgrown with melons. All the colonists disembarked. On August 18th, 1587, Eleanor Dare gave birth to a daughter christened Virginia in honor of being the first Christian born in Virginia. Records indicate Marjorie Harvey gave birth shortly thereafter, but there's no information about the kid or gender or name. By the time the fleet was preparing to return to England, the colonists had decided to relocate 50 miles up on Alberley Sound. The colonists persuaded Governor White to return to England to explain the colony's desperate situation and ask for help because they were running out of food and supplies and they needed assistance because, they've never done this before. White reluctantly agreed and departed with a fleet on August 27th, 1587, leaving all 150 colonists by themselves. White returned to England on November 5th, 1587. By the time reports of the Spanish Armada mobilizing for an attack had reached London, and Queen Elizabeth had prohibited any able ship from leaving England so that they might be able to participate in the coming battles. During the winter, Grenville was granted a waiver to lead a fleet into the Caribbean to attack the Spanish, and White was permitted to accompany him in a resupply ship. The fleet was set to launch in March of 1588, but unfavorable winds kept them in port until Grenville received new orders to stay and defend England. Two of the smaller ships in Grenville's fleet, the Brave and the Roe, were deemed unsuitable for combat, and White was permitted to take them to Roanoke. The ships departed on April 22nd, but the captains of the ships attempted to capture several Spanish ships on the outward bound voyage in order to improve their profits. On May 6th, they were attacked by French pirates near Morocco. Nearly 24 of the crew were killed, and the supplies bound for Roanoke were relooted, leaving the ships to return to England. Following the defeat of the Spanish Armada in August, England maintained the ban on the shipping in order to focus efforts on organizing a counter-armada to attack Spain in 1589. White was not to gain permission to make another supply attempt until 1590. 3 years later, he kept trying and trying and trying, and it's not like this was not a time where you could just call or send a letter. There was no way that he could get back there unless he took a ship there. There was no possible way he could contact them. Which just sucks because your daughter and your grandchild is there and you can't talk to them. You don't know if they're okay, you don't know what's happening. You can't do anything because you can't get a hold of them. It's like, that would suck. Eventually, Raleigh arranged passage for White on a privateering expedition organized by John Watts. The fleet of 6 ships would spend the summer of 1590 raiding Spanish outposts in the Caribbean, but the flagship Hopewell and Moonlight would split off to take White to his colony. Hopewell and Moonlight anchored at Croatoan Island on August 12th. On the evening of August 15th, while anchored at the north end of Croatoan Island, the crews sighted plumes of smoke on Roanoke Island. The following morning, they investigated another column of smoke on the southern end of Croatoan, but found nothing. White's landing party spent the next 2 days attempting to cross Palomico Sound with considerable difficulty and loss of life. On August 17th, they sighted a fire on the north end of Roanoke and rowed towards it, but they reached the island after nightfall and decided to not risk coming ashore. The men spent the night in their anchored boats, singing English songs and hoped that the colonists would hear them. White and the others made landfall on the morning of August 18th, his granddaughter's 3rd birthday. The party found fresh tracks in the sand, but were contacted by no one. They also discovered the letters CRO carved into a tree. Upon reaching the site of the colony, White noted the area had been fortified with a palisade. Near the entrance of the fencing, the word Croatoan was carved into one of the posts. White was certain these 2 inscriptions meant that the colonists had peacefully relocated to Croatoan Island, since they had agreed in 1587 that the colonists would leave a secret token indicating their destination, or a cross pate as a dress code. Within the palisade, the search party found that the houses had been dismantled and anything that could be carried had been removed. Several large trunks, including 3 belonging to White, containing the belongings he left behind in 1587, have been dug up and looted. None of the colony's boats could be found along the shore, because they left a few boats with them. The party returned to the Hopewell that evening, and plans were made to go to Croatoan the following day. However, Hopewell's anchor cable snapped, leaving the ship with only one working cable and anchor. The search mission could not continue, given the considerable risk of shipwreck. Moonlight set off for England, but the crew of the Hopewell offered a compromise with White in which they would spend winter in the Caribbean and return to the Outer Banks in the spring of 1591. This plan fell through, though, when the Hopewell was blown off course, forcing them to stop for supplies in the Azores. When the winds prevented landfall there, the ship was again forced to change course for England, arriving on October 24th, 1590. Now, there were a few investigations to figure out where the colonists went. From 1595 to 1602, White failed to locate his colonists in 1590. His report suggested that they simply relocated and might yet be found alive. However, it served Raleigh's purposes to keep the matter in doubt. So long as the settlers could not be proven dead, he could legally maintain his claim. So he cared more about his claim than the people. Dick. During Raleigh's first transatlantic voyage in 1595, he claimed to be in search of his lost colonists, although he would admit this to be disinformation to cover his search for El Dorado. He'd rather search for the city of gold than people. Wow. You sack of potatoes. On the return voyage, he sailed past the Outer Banks and later claimed that weather prevented him from landing. I call bullshit on that. I have a feeling you just didn't even try. Raleigh later sought to enforce his monopoly on Virginia based on the potential survival of the Roanoke colonists. When the price of sassafras skyrocketed, he founded a 1602 mission to the Outer Banks with the stated goal of resuming the search. Led by Samuel Mace, this expedition differed from previous voyages in that Raleigh brought his own ship and guaranteed the sailor wages so that they could not be distracted by privateering. However, the ship's itinerary and manifest indicate that Raleigh's top priority was harvesting sassafras far south of Croatoan Island, so another lie. By the time Mace approached Hatteras Island, which is Croatoan, bad weather prevented them from lingering in the area. In 1603, Raleigh was implicated in the main plot and arrested for treason against King James, effectively ending his charter. There was an expedition in 1603, led by Bartholomew Gilbert, with the intention of finding the Roanoke colonists. Their intended destination was Chesapeake Bay, but bad weather forced them to land in an unspecific location near there. The landing team, including Gilbert himself, was killed by a group of Native Americans for unknown reasons on July 29th. The remaining crew were forced to return to England empty-handed. From 1607 to 1609, John Smith. Following the establishment of Jamestown settlement in 1607, John Smith was captured by the Powhatan and met with both their leader, Chief Powhatan, and his brother, Apchanacano. They described him a place called Akanahoan, where men wore European-style clothing and unknown, which featured walled houses. Later, after Smith returned to the colony, he made arrangements with Wochinchopunk, the king of the Paspahe, to investigate Panawiki, another place reported to be inhabited by European dress. The colony produced a crude map of the region with labels for these villages. The map also featured a place called Pakrakanik, with a note indicating, "Here remaineth 4 men clothed that came from Roanoke to Akanahuahan." In the summer of 1608, Smith sent a letter about this information along with the map back to England. Smith planned to explore Patronik, but a dispute with the Pasahe ended the mission before it even began. He also dispatched 2 search parties, possibly to look for the other villagers reported to him, with instructions to find the lost company of Sir Walter Raleigh. Neither group could find any sign of the Roanoke colonists living in the area. From 1610 to 1612, William Strachey arrived in Jamestown along with Gates and Machumps in May of 1610. By 1612, he had returned to England, where he wrote The History of Travel into Virginia Britannia, an overview of the Virginian territory. He described Pakaranamek, Okanahoan, Anog, and Ridano. in a manner consistent with Smith's map. However, Strachey introduced additional details about the slaughter of the Roanoke. Strachey suggests that the lost colonists had spent 20 years living peacefully with the tribe beyond Powhatan territory. Wahunsenakak, he claimed, carried out the unprovoked attack at the recommendation of his priest shortly before the arrival of the Jamestown colonists. Based on this account, 7 English, 4 men, 2 boys, and 1 woman survived the assault and fled up the Chowan River. They later came under the protection of the chieftain named Iananoko, for whom they beat copper at Roanoke. The history of travel never directly identifies the tribe that supposedly hosted the Roanoke colonists. However, Strachey did describe an attack against the Chesapeakeans in which Wahunsenakak's priests warned that the nation would arise in Chesapeake Bay to threaten his dominion. It has been inferred that the colonists had relocated to Chesapeake, and both groups were massacred in the same attack. 1701 to 1709, John Lawson. Sea traffic through Roanoke Island fell into decline in the 17th century, owing to the dangerous waters of the Outer Banks. In 1672, the inlet between Hatteras and Croatoan Island closed, and the resulting landmass became known as Hatteras Island. During John Lawson's 1701 to 1709 exploration of northern Carolina, he visited Hatteras Island and encountered the Hatteras people. Although there is evidence of European activity in the Outer Banks throughout the 17th century, Lawson was the first historian to investigate the region since White left in 1590. Lawson was impressed with the influence of English culture on the Hatteras. They reported that several of their ancestors had been white, and some of them had gray eyes, supporting this claim. Lawson theorized that members of the 1587 colony had assimilated into the community after they lost hope of regaining contact with England. While visiting Roanoke Island itself, Lawson reported finding remains of a fort as well as English coins, firearms, and a powder horn. A significant challenge for archaeologists seeking information about the 1587 colonists is that many common artifacts could plausibly originate from the 1585 colony, the one they tried to start first, or from Native Americans who traded with other European settlements in the same area. Andrew Lawler suggests that an example of a conclusive find would be female remains, since the 1585 colony was all men. Buried according to Christian tradition, supine in an east-west orientation, which can be dated to before 1650, by which point Europeans would have spread throughout the region. However, few human remains of any kind have been discovered at sites related to the lost colony. One possible explanation for the extreme deficiency in archaeological evidence is shoreline erosion. The northern shore of Roanoke Island, where the Lane and White colonies were located, lost 928 feet between 1851 and 1970. Explorating from the trend back to the 1580s, it is likely portions of the settlement are now underwater, along with any artifacts or signs of life. From 2011 to 2019, there is Site X. In November 2011, researchers at the First Colony Foundation noticed 2 corrective patches on White's 1985 map, La Virginia Pars. At their request, the British Museum examined the original map with a light table. One of the patches at the confluence of the Roanoke and Chowan rivers was found to cover a symbol representing a fort. As a symbol is not to scale, it covers an area on the map representing thousands of acres in the Bertie County, North Carolina. However, the location is presumed to be in or near the 16th century Wampanoag village of Metacum. In 2012, when a team prepared to excavate where the symbol indicated, archaeologist Nicholas Lucchetti suggested they claim the site be called Site X, as X marks the spot. In October 2017, the First Colony Foundation reported finding fragments of Tudor pottery and weapons at Site X and concluded that these indicate a small group of colonists residing peacefully in the area. The challenge for this research is to convincingly rule out the possibility that such finds were not brought to the area by the 1585 Lane colony or the trading post established by Nathaniel Batts in the 1650s. In 2019, the Foundation announced plans to expand the research into land that had been donated to North Carolina as Salem Creek State Natural Area. So there are many theories as to what happened to the Roanoke colonists. They integrated into local tribes. that they attempted to return to England and maybe sank in the ocean or traveled down the coast and landed somewhere else. There's the conspiracy against Raleigh, that they were all actually against him and that he sent people to murder him, murder them. Lastly, which is the most interesting type of theory, is the Dare Stones. From 1937 to 1941, a series of inscribed stones were discovered that were claimed to have been written by Eleanor Dare, the mother of Virginia Dare. They told of the travelings of the colonists and their ultimate deaths. Most historians believe that they are a fraud, but there are some today who still believe at least one of the stones to be genuine. The first one is sometimes regarded as different from the rest, based on a linguistic and chemical analysis, and as possibly genuine. To conclude, this is a story that I have been interested in for years. I mean, I did a school project on this whole thing, and it's so interesting to be like, where are they? Where did the colonists go? Were they murdered? Did they move? The carving in Croatoan could mean two things. One, they moved to Roanoke Island, they hung out with the Croatoans, or they were murdered. And it was maybe like the Croatoan going to be like, haha, we killed them, so they know. You know, anything is possible. What I'm really hoping for is that they peacefully moved to Croatoan, and that was the end of it. They lived out their days. The Indians, took them in, kept them safe, and they were cared for. What could be possible is that the Native Americans got sick of them, because that's understandable, and then just murdered them. That's an option. Until we find definite proof, a body, anything, we have no idea what happened to them, and we may never know. I mean, they vanished. We don't know if they vanished a day after John White left, or if it was right before they arrived back in 1590. It's possible they were dead for 3 years by the time he got there. Anything is possible at this point, and I just feel really bad for John White, because he had to, bring his daughter and his granddaughter and his daughter's wife. He had to bring his daughter and his granddaughter to this new land, and he got to see her be born and get to see her for only a short few moments before having to leave. And by the time he gets back, his daughter's missing with her husband and his granddaughter, who's supposed to be 3. He has no idea if they lived, if they died. He never knew. He never got to find out what happened to his family, and I feel like that is a hard thing to live with, knowing that you may have sent them to their death because you brought them along, and now you have no idea what happened to them. It's heartbreaking, really, and I feel really bad for him, but comment down below what you guys think happened. Do you think they were murdered, that they moved to a new tribe, or what other kind of theories I may not have even brought up? I hope you guys enjoyed as much as you can enjoy a story like this. I'll be back again on Thursday with another True Crime Thursday, and Monday with whatever I decide to post. Alright guys, see you later.